Everybody, here is a lesson on blending quotations or embedding quotations into your literary analysis essay. Start off with some people use the word embedding, some people use the word blending, but they mean the same thing. It means that quotations never stand alone. It means that they should be seamlessly blended into a sentence so that the reader is able to remember key information about the quotation. This is called context. The reader may not remember who says the quotation or where the quotation comes from in the text. Dropping in quotations without context will confuse your reader and inhibit the power of your argument. Imagine if an attorney in a court of law held up a photograph without saying anything about it, just dropped the photo on the table in front of the jurors, and then walked away. Would the jurors understand what they are seeing? Nope, they'd be confused. They need context for the photo. Who is in it, who took it, when, where, why, etc. And so does the reader of your essay. There are three ways to blend quotations into writing: the run-in quotation, the embedded quotation, and the block quotation. So quotations shorter than 3 lines use run-in and embedded quotations. So A, B, and C in this paragraph. A is a run-in quotation and B and C are embedded quotations. Okay. So before stabbing himself, Othello reminds his listeners, "I have done the state of some service, and they know it." He speaks to himself as one that loved not wisely, but too well, and compares himself to the base Indian who threw a pearl away. So a run-in quotation is a quotation that is introduced formally and creates a natural pause before the quotation where a comma is used to separate the quotation from the rest of the sentence. Okay? An embedded quotation, a quotation that is blended seamlessly into the sentence without a pause. It sounds as if the quotation words are part of the writer's own original sentence. Block quotation is a quotation of 3 lines or more. So for example, in the final scene, convinced that Desdemona is entirely innocent and having decided to kill himself, Othello says to his auditors, "I pray you in letters when you shall speak these unlucky deeds relate, speak of me as I am, nothing extenuate, nor set down aught in malice." So the steps for this: introduce the quotation with a colon instead of a comma. Indent 2 tabs for every single line of the block quotation to set it apart. Don't use quotation marks around the quotation because it's already indented. That shows that it is a quotation. Whoops. There, so you see there's no quotation marks anywhere here. And double space block quotations just like the rest of your essay, but it's not shown here for space reasons. Now you can have quotations within quotations. And to show that, you use a single quotation mark for a quotation within a quotation. This includes any dialogue spoken by a character. So, for example, in her dying speech, Amelia asks her dead mistress, "Hark, canst thou hear me? I will play the swan and die in music. Willow, willow, willow." So if you see here, we've got those, a single quotation inside the double quotation mark. So the double there, that means this is a quotation. The single one means that it is dialogue. Now, inside or outside, you place commas and periods inside quotation marks. You place semicolons and colons outside quotation marks. You place question marks and exclamation marks inside if they belong to the quotation and outside if they belong to your sentence. Now, what does that look like? Okay, first off, we've got some dialogue. Othello is saying, "I am not valiant neither." And we have a comma inside the quotation mark. Then you say, another example of that is Othello says, "I am not valiant neither." So we have a comma outside here to introduce the quotation mark and a period at the end of everything, just like in the top one. In the third quotation, we have more dialogue. So we have those 3 quotation marks there, double and single. "Who can control his fate?" cries Othello. The question mark was part of that original quotation mark, so it goes inside. And then we have a period at the end. And does Shakespeare endorse Othello's implication that no one can control his fate? So because we've got dialogue, I'll start here. We have the 3 quotation marks, right? Now we don't have the question mark inside here because you are not quoting You're not mentioning the fact that it is Othello speaking. And the sentence stem here of does introduces the need for the question mark at the end. Okay, does that make sense? Hopefully. And you've also got a period there. Now, correcting common blending errors, so fragments and run-ons. So this is incorrect. Othello, not wisely but too well. This sentence is actually a fragment because it's missing a verb. Be sure that when you blend, you avoid fragments and run-on sentences. So to correct this, you would say, Othello speaks of himself as one that loved not wisely but too well. Okay, you see, just needs that explanation there, that context. Some errors, another error, is pronoun agreement. So the incorrect version is Othello asks his auditors to speak of me as I am. The pronouns do not agree. The sentence shifts from the third person Othello and his to the first person me and I in the quotation. Because the writer has embedded the quotation, the pronouns need to agree. So correct, Othello bids his auditors to speak of him as he is. Or you can change the type of blending from an embedded quotation to a run-in quotation to avoid having to change the pronouns. And I recommend this versus that. This is more awkward and you're kind of changing things. I mean, it's still technically correct, but from a stylistic perspective, this one's much better. Othello says, speak of me as I am. Notice that in these, some of the words have been changed to make the pronouns agree. You are allowed to change words in a quotation, but be sure to put square brackets around any words you change from the original text. However, as a rule of thumb, it is best not to alter the original quotation too much because it begins to lose its validity. So changing the blending strategy in the example above to a run-in quotation is a better way to blend, as I've already said. Subject-verb agreement. Incorrect. Othello says that he have done the state some service. The subject and verb of subordinate clause do not agree here. Correction, Othello says that he has done the state some service. Notice again that the writer has changed a word from the original quotation so that the subject and verb agree and the sentence reads as a complete sentence. Now, capitalization, I see errors in this too. So in a incorrect example, Iago says, come, hold your peace to Emilia. When you use a run-in quotation, always capitalize the first word of the quotation. So the correct version, Iago says, come, hold your peace to Emilia. Now, bracketing words. An incorrect example here. Though Iago bids his wife to hold her peace, Emilia declares, I will speak as liberally as the north wind. The words within your quotation marks must be quoted exactly from the original text. Otherwise, you must show any changes you make or put any changes you make into brackets to show that you changed it. The original is Iago, come hold your peace. Emilia says, twill out, I peace. No, I will speak as liberal as the north. So to correct this from that incorrect version, you would say, though Iago bids his wife to hold her peace, see that bracketing there, Emilia declares, I will speak as liberally as the north wind. So again, as I said before, it is okay to bracket quotations like this. However, you may just want to see if you can find other ways to blend your quotations into your sentences. Here's another incorrect example. So Iago bids his wife to hold her peace. So your sentences, including your bracketed words, must read as if there were no brackets. So Iago bids his wife to hold her peace. Not great. So see, I again would recommend finding another way to include that into your paragraph if you need to use brackets. It's just awkward like that, okay? Ellipsis, so those are 3 dots, like this down here. Now, an incorrect use of an ellipsis. Though Iago bids his wife to hold her peace, Emilia declares, twill out, I will speak as liberal as the north wind. So if you delete words from the quotation, you must use an ellipsis with brackets around it to show the reader you have cut something out of the original text. So those 3 dots are like a placeholder to say there is something that used to be here, but I've taken it out. So here's the original. Iago, come, hold your peace. Emilia, twill out, I peace. No, I will speak as liberal as the north. The correct version of this would be, though Iago bids his wife to hold her peace,
Emilia declares, "'Twill out. I will speak as liberal as the north wind." Now that I piece, no, this was taken out there because it's not super necessary and it helps the sentence flow. Now I've got some blending quotations practice. Part 1, directions. Label the type of blending for each, so whether it is a run-in, embedded, or it is a block quotation. And you can do that for all of these questions. Part 2, directions. Change the type of blending used in the following sentences. If it is a run-in quotation, change it to an embedded quotation. If it is an embedded quotation, change it to a run-in quotation. It is always best to use both styles of blending so that you do not fall into the trap of blending every single quotation the exact same way. Now for part 1 and part 2, I want you to share your blending work with me. Again, through a Word document, through a chat, or through a phone call of some type. Okay? Don't worry about this homework. It's just asking you to blend your own quotations, which you have to do for your essay anyway. So I'm hoping that if you can do it well here with these 2 parts to this assignment, you can do it in your own essay. But if you'd like some support with that, send me a draft of what you've got and I'll take a look at it. Again, we can skip this part here. Now, blending quotations with TCS. So as we have discussed thus far, textual evidence is necessary for creating a persuasive argument. It is the backbone of the argument and provides the examples to prove the thesis statement. When integrating textual evidence into an essay, it is necessary to blend the quotations into your own writing. Quotations should not be dropped into the writing and stand by themselves, as this will only confuse the reader, especially if the reader does not remember the quotation. Well, but how do you blend a quotation into your own writing? How do you create an embedded or run-in quotation in an effective way? You can do this by using TCS. For each quotation, you should include a transition to move smoothly into the example, the context for the quotation, so what is happening in the story where the quotation appears, and the speaker who says the quotation. By including TCS, you help the reader remember the quotation, which is necessary in order to convince the reader that your argument is valid. So T, transition. It is important to transition smoothly into the quotation instead of interrupting the reader's thoughts by abruptly dropping it into the essay in a jarring and disconnected way. Fluidity is the key. Context. It is important to give the context for the quotation so that the reader remembers when, where, how, and why the quotation is stated in the text. Don't make the reader try to remember the quotation. Do the remembering for the reader. And the speaker. It is equally important to reveal who says the quotation in order to clarify the context for the reader. Remember, if a character does not say the quotation, the speaker is simply the narrator. So some examples. So for example, when the riders first meet the old man, one of them yells, "What, old fool, give place! Why live so long? Isn't it time to die?" So here's our transition, here is our context, and here is our speaker. Another example occurs in the prologue when the pilgrims have gathered at the Tabard Inn, and the narrator describes the monk's wrought gold cunningly fashioned pin in the prologue. So we have our transition, we have our context, and our speaker combined here. 3, also, transition, the narrator says, the speaker, in the description of the knight at the Tabard Inn, our context, that because the knight has fought in many battles, he is wise and is as modest as a maid. 4, moreover, again transition, the narrator describes, our speaker, the miller as they wait to embark upon their journey to Canterbury Cathedral, saying he was a master hand at stealing grain. So as you can see here, each of these sentences has transition, it has speaker, it has a context. You can change the order in which those appear in your sentence, but they all need to be there. And then number 5, another example is when the partner begins his story and he says, "It's of 3 writers I have to tell." Again, transition, context, speaker. So TCS rules sheet. Every quotation in an essay must be accompanied by TCS, with the exception of a quotation that is used as an attention grabber in the introduction paragraph. TCS does not necessarily have to appear in the same sentence as the quotation. However, TCS should be located near the quotation. 3. TCS does not have to appear in any specific order. CST works just fine, CTS, STC, etc. The most important aspect of using TCS is that it just needs to be there. Who is the speaker if the quotation is not dialogue? The speaker is the narrator of the story or the speaker of the poem. If the same character in the same scene or part of a story speaks all of the quotations, you might be able to leave out the speaker and context for some quotations as long as it is still clear to the reader who is speaking and what is happening in the story when the quotation is said. Be sure your transition words make a logical sense within the paragraph. If you select the transition word, however, you are showing contrast. If you select the transitional device, consequently, you are showing cause and effect. Do not simply select a transition word or device at random. Be sure to vary your usage of transitions. If you continually use the exact same transitions over and over again, your essay will sound choppy and repetitive, which detracts from your persuasive voice. The same goes for varying how you blend quotations. If you blend a quotation the exact same way every single time, your essay will sound choppy and repetitive. Try different approaches to integrating TCS into your writing. Be sure to blend your quotations so that they make grammatical sense and are not fragments or run-on sentences. The context for a quotation can never be a page number, act number, scene number, etc. For the context, you should give a brief plot summary of the specific moment where the quotation occurs in the text to remind your reader of that part of the story. Now here we can blend some quotes with TCS practice. Part 1 directions. Underline and label the TCS for each of the following blended quotations. Also, label the type of blending used in each sentence as a run-in or an embedded quotation. And you have got 3 there. Part 2 directions. Select 3 quotations from your outline and blend them into your own sentence using TCS. Label the TCS of each blended quotation and also the type of blending you used. Run in, embedded, or block. Now again, this is not something that I expect you to hand in. However, if we were in class, I would be able to take a look at your work and do some kind of reading over your shoulder. I can't do that now. So if you want, and it probably is a good idea, if you want to submit some of these quotations that you've blended for my review, I am happy to take a look at them and to support you through this process. Okay. Now you should have enough information to craft strong body paragraphs using quotations that are well blended using the TCS structure. Again, I'm not asking you or expecting you to hand in an essay that is marked up, but if you want to go through yours and see if you've got TCS, if you've got a draft already, or if you haven't started writing, make sure you're using TCS. That's great, because we're kind of doing this on the fly, in an unideal situation with this distance learning. We'll just do the best we can. I'm here to take a look at whatever you want to submit to me for review. Okay? And that's it. That's how you blend quotations. This is an important one. I suggest you watch it a few times or go back and forth through the errors and how to do things. This is one of those skills that will take you far in ELA 20 and ELA 30 and in any other literature-based courses that you may encounter in your life. Thanks, guys.